And welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. We have in the studio Rick Weinberg, who is the editor of the California Business Journal. Our audience demographic is 98% business owners and executives who listen to learn from our guests' experiences. If your firm is interested in reaching these top decision makers, then advertising on our show just may be the answer. Each month, our sponsors gain valuable exposure through their support of our program. If you'd like to learn more, contact our VP of Sales, Rose Chamora, at 951-515-4661. All of our archives can be found from our website, criticalmass4business.com. Okay, as I said, I have Rick Weinberg, who's the editor of the California Business Journal. I've asked him to join us in the studio to share how the California Business Journal got started after he realized the need for more localized business coverage. Rick, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Rick.
Well, let's start by talking a little bit about you. Share with the audience your professional background. What did you do before you started the Business Journal?
I've always been a reporter, a writer, and an editor. My degree is in journalism, and I went to school in Boston at Northeastern University, and I was immediately a sports writer. Actually, before I even graduated from college, I already had a full-time job as a sports reporter. And then I wound up staying in sports for about 20 years or so. And before I got tired of writing about when I got tired of writing about sports, I became a business writer.
Okay.
And that's how California Business Journal evolved. But early in my career, I was fortunate enough to work for some great publications like the New York Times, the Associated Press. I also did on-camera TV work for ESPN and Fox. And as I said, when I left sports and I got a job as a reporter for On Wall Street magazine, it was so wonderful because it was such a dramatic change from what I had been doing prior.
How's that?
Well, as a sports writer, you're interviewing athletes who are interviewed every single day by multiple media outlets.
Right.
And it doesn't become a challenge anymore. At least it wasn't that way for me. So for example, if I'm writing a story about LeBron James, what in the world can you possibly write about him that he didn't say earlier today, yesterday, last week, last month?
Right.
There's really nothing. Of course, they're involved in a huge the NBA Finals, but at the same time, everything's been written about him, and it just wasn't a challenge anymore. It was basically duplicating many articles that have already been written.
Right.
So when I transitioned into covering Wall Street and writing about IPOs and trends and businesses and financial advisors, it was such a revelation because I started to write articles about people who had never been interviewed before.
Interesting.
People who had never had an article written about them before. And then it dawned on me that there are just thousands upon thousands of business executives, small business in particular, small business owners and professionals who would love to have an article written about them that they could utilize as a sales and marketing tool.
Interesting.
So that's how the whole concept for California Business came alive.
Okay.
And I wanted to kind of reverse the model at the same time.
What do you mean?
Most publications are driven by advertising and by news, especially newspapers is all about news. It's what's happening now.
Yes.
Magazines a little bit different of a beast in that being a monthly magazine, they focus on almost timeless items because they work so far in advance. Most magazines are already they work three months ahead of time, but they're driven by advertising. And while they write a lot of feature stories on businesses, small, their main focus is advertising. And as you know, as many people out there know, it costs a tremendous amount of money to advertise. And personally, I'm not a big believer in advertising for a small local business person. They, in my opinion, an article, a genuine, insightful and compelling article about them and their business is much more valuable than an ad.
Okay.
Especially when you look at the cost. I've conducted focus groups where I've had people talk about the magazine itself, looking at the ads versus the stories. They don't look at ads. but they read the stories.
Okay.
So that
So
was
content then.
It's content, of course, and because people are inundated every day with ads, whether they're listening to the radio, whether they're driving along the freeway,
Right.
whether they're watching TV, it's ads, ads, ads. And so for the small business person, those ads aren't nearly as effective as what a genuine, professional, well-written, compelling article, magazine article, can be for them.
So it feels
that's how it all started.
Okay, so it feels like we've taken the conversation about your background and your experience, and we've started to talk about your business model and a little bit about California Business Journal.
Exactly.
So let's go there then. Help me to understand the business idea behind it, which I think you've started to explain to us, and then also, when people go to California Business Journal, what will they discover there?
Well, it's calbizjournal.com. That's the URL. I didn't want to put californiabusinessjournal.com as the URL because it's so long to type. So I shortened it. And what people will find is a beautifully designed online magazine that features a wide array of articles ranging from attorneys to financial advisors to general business people. Anybody who can utilize a in-depth, compelling article about them, their history, their career, their backgrounds, and utilize it as a springboard to generate more clients, that's who I'm looking for. For example, when someone's looking for an attorney, and let's say they're looking for one right here in Orange County, California. Well, how many was going to come up on a Google search? Thousands upon thousands.
Yes.
But if they drill down and it's for a divorce, let's say divorce attorneys.
Okay.
They narrow it down to 2 or 3 divorce attorneys, and one of them happens to have an article written about them by me, California Business Journal. They're going to be more apt to go with that attorney because of the way I portray them in the article as being the go-to attorney for this particular area of their practice.
Okay. So how do you construct these articles then?
I interview them.
Okay.
Just like you're interviewing me now, I interview people. And with my background, having worked for the New York Times, the Associated Press, I have a tremendous ability to write and to interview people.
Okay. And then that comes out in your online in your publication.
Exactly.
Okay. And how long does it stay in your publication?
It stays on there for good. It's up there for good, and people can Google that particular article. It'll come up. It'll always be alive.
Okay.
As long as I'm alive. And so that's what they're looking for. People are much more. There's greater benefits to an article written about someone than an ad because the story makes you truly stand out.
Right. It's a third-party endorsement. It's third-party endorsement, right?
Third-party endorsement.
And so it demonstrates your value and your skill set. And I understand that in your publication, that is an online magazine, right?
Correct.
So are you writing a magazine-style story then?
Exactly.
Kind of earlier you said the difference between a newspaper and a magazine is sort of the approach.
It's an in-depth magazine article that you would see in the New York Times magazine or Los Angeles magazine, Chicago magazine, the quality of the look and the quality of the article. That's what matters. The fact that I have written for a publication as great and big as the New York Times speaks
you're
volumes.
a recognized national reporter. You're not. Okay.
Exactly.
Right. I get it.
So, and I just wanted to help small business people get an article written about them that they could
Do you think
utilize.
there's a lack of attention to the small middle market?
Totally, 100%.
Why do you think that is?
Because the news is driven by the biggest people in the news and the celebrity factor. Pick up any magazine. Who's on the cover?
Yeah.
Brad Pitt,
right.
or somebody who's in on a TV show, or in a movie, or a musician, or an athlete.
I think the epitome of that is Oprah's magazine, where she's on the cover every month.
Exactly.
Right. It's like,
right.
But don't you ever get tired of just seeing her? I mean, there's nobody else who could make the cover of her own magazine. but her.
Exactly. You pick up, though, GQ magazine. Who's on the cover? Always a celebrity, because the editors there feel that the more, the bigger celebrity they have on the cover, the more readers they're going to get. Well, we've read enough about the LeBron Jameses of the world. Yes, he's a wonderful guy, a wonderful athlete who does a lot for the community, but enough is enough.
Right.
What about the small local business people who deserve and warrant an article?
Let's put this in a business context then, but your perspective as well is that business publications who could be covering small and middle market companies, we cater here as well to small and middle market companies, 2 to 100 million. That's my audience. CEOs around the country, heavily concentrated in Southern California, but not exclusively. That's my audience. And why aren't business publications who have the ink and the paper covering those businesses more than maybe the larger companies that are here in Southern California?
They're covering people who advertise
you
for
think
them.
So? Okay.
Yes, they are. And while they're great magazines, don't get me wrong, I've worked for them, I love them, I think they're great. The fact is, they focus on the people who advertise with them.
Right.
So if they do a story on financial advisors, who are they going to quote within that story? Who are they going to feature within that story?
Okay, so who are they going to tease out and give a little more attention to?
They're going to focus.
So it's almost an advertorial.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I would think, with that premise, that it would be harder to write content that is unbiased if, in fact, you're skewing that towards the advertiser.
It's not really, because I'm a very positive person. The media is negative. Your editors want you to write controversial, negative things about whatever you're doing.
Well, bad news sells, right?
Yes, they want it balanced. True, they definitely want it balanced. And as an editor myself, when I was working in mainstream media, of course, I want balance in that article. If you're going to criticize someone or bring up controversy, make sure you balance it.
Okay.
But that's not what I'm about. I'm about all being positive,
right?
Because I want these business professionals to be able to utilize these articles to generate more business for themselves. I'm not going to delve deep into their past, and to me, that's not what it's about.
Right.
And even if someone has made a mistake, well, so what? They deserve a second chance, and why should that be brought up? That's going to hamper them moving forward in their business.
Rick, we're going to take our third and final commercial break. Sure. You're listening to Critical Mass Radio Show. Our guest here in this segment is Rick Weinberg. He is the editor of California Business Journal, Cal Biz Journal, if you're looking for it online. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about how comfortable the people are that you're profiling in your publication, because many probably haven't been interviewed before. Maybe this is their first exposure. So I imagine part of your craft has to be able to help them portray themselves properly as well, and talk about kind of the strongest salient points about them and their background and their business. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. You get a little free advice here from Rick Weinberg about how to properly position yourself in the media after we come back from these words from our sponsors on Critical Mass Radio Show.
There's something positive about the word up. When things are looking good, they're looking up. When someone's down, you cheer them up. So how do you move up? Well, when it comes to getting your bachelor's or master's degree, there's one university that stacks up. Brandman University. Brandman is ranked by U.S. News & World Report as one of the nation's top 10 universities for online bachelor's programs. Brandman's online graduate programs in business and education also receive top honors. So look us up at brandman.edu. Brandman University. Move up.
Smart Business Network is a business-to-business multimedia company providing insight, advice, and strategy for C-level executives of fast-growth, middle-market, and large companies. As one of the nation's largest publishers of local management journals, under the Smart Business name, Smart Business Network publishes 19 regional print editions, presents dozens of large and small-scale business conferences and award programs, and produces a vibrant interactive digital media presence. For more information, visit us at www.sbnonline.com.
Richard Franzi is a highly sought-after keynote speaker on topics of interest to CEOs of middle firms across North America. Richard's talks include Killing Cats Leads to Rats, a fascinating look at how unintended consequences of CEOs' decisions impact their firm's performance. Your Gray Matter Matters, which explores how a CEO's mindset can differentiate a middle market firm and define its culture. Richard delivers talks to a variety of audiences, ranging from executive team retreats to keynotes in front of hundreds of CEOs. To learn more about his talks, visit criticalmassforbusiness.com and select the contact page or call 949-887-4104.
Welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show, a live radio show engineered by Paul Roberts, in case you were wondering who's the man behind the board. Our guest for this segment is Rick Weinberg. He's editor of California Business Journal. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our listeners who download our radio show as a podcast. You've downloaded over 13,000 shows during the last 30 days, and we here at the program, we truly appreciate your continued and growing support. Of course, all of our shows can be heard live on internet radio station octalkradio.net, just like now, for those of you that are listening to the program live, or rebroadcast anytime on Apple iTunes, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, and various other business podcasting services that we've partnered with across the country. All right, Rick, we're back here in the studio. Let's talk a little bit about how you develop the content for the story. I'm not a professionally trained journalist as you are. I went to school for broadcasting. That's why I'm sitting behind the microphone here. But I understand a little bit about the need to have a story within the story. You know, you need to have a good lead, and you need to get people's interest. So how do you approach the interview that you do with, say, somebody who might be listening to this radio show today who's a CEO of a middle market company?
Well, it varies for everybody because everybody has a different story. Every company is different.
Right.
So my tagline actually is every business has a story, which is true, and every person has a story. And I find people and businesses intriguing. I think everybody can utilize an article written about them to generate more business. So basically, my approach is I study the business. I see, of course, what do they do, how they do it, how good are they at doing it. But then, and that's how I basically structure the interview, and it's very casual. They don't need much coaching,
right,
because you can develop a series of questions, but based on the response that they give to a certain question, that's going to elicit another question, a follow-up question from me.
That's what I do with this radio show,
which
right?
isn't even on the list.
Right.
And those can be the most compelling answers that can absolutely turn the story right around.
Okay.
I have examples after example after example of delving deep into an interview with somebody, and it turns out to be the most compelling portion of the story.
Okay.
Like this morning, I was just working on a story. There's a story about a company called Power One.
Right.
That's located right here. Well, they have an office here in Orange County. They have offices across the world, or across the country rather. And they're in the energy. They're an energy supplier and a broker. And I happened to talk to an individual who invested in the company, and why he invested in the company, and the reasons why he gave were so compelling, because of course energy, you need, energy and electricity, you need it every second of every day. It's never going to go away.
Right.
The price always goes up. So from his perspective as an investor, that's what turned the story around. So here's a story I'm doing on Power One, and they want a nice positive piece written about them. What better person could I have to interview than someone who invested almost $500,000 in the company, and then saying they had many options. They could have gone to the stock market, of course. They could have gone to real estate, bought another property, but he wanted to diversify.
Right.
So he looked at this. And the business model of Power One is very intriguing. So that's just one example, but the questions that I asked him wound up being the lead. He's the lead of that article.
Okay, the lead.
And it filters down. It's a real art, writing an article,
it is, isn't it?
Just like it is asking questions to someone,
right,
and painting a picture.
Right.
There's really no difference, but you got to have this great feeling. You got to be gifted.
Right, and you have to be interested in the subject.
Very
matter,
interested,
right? Yeah.
and I'm interested in every
I
one
can
of my
tell.
clients,
Yeah, that
and
comes
interested. I can't wait to sit down and write the article.
Right, sounds like it. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So what do people say after you've written the article and you give it? I assume they have a right to review it before it goes live.
Exactly.
And, okay.
That's another thing that's different about my business model. The person I'm writing the story on, they own the rights to the story.
Okay.
With any other print publication out there, they don't own the rights to the story. They don't get to see the article before it's printed. And with me, it's the total opposite, because I feel that's important. I mean, people are paying for this article from a genuine a reporter and writer who's worked for established publications like the New York Times. Yes, they're paying for it, but they're paying still for something that they can utilize that's going to place them or position them in a tremendous light to people who are looking for individuals in their industry. So I give them the right to look at the article prior to that, because I want to make sure that it's exactly the way they want it to be, that
Sure.
it positions them
Sure.
and portrays them
And they
exactly
probably
the way
fact
they
check
want.
it a little bit for you too, right? Yeah.
Exactly, of course. There's always a typo or two.
Yeah, something.
And but what I'm doing is no different than what other publications are doing, because if they're basing their model on doing a story on someone based on the advertising, how much money they've spent with them, then I feel my model is equally as effective, and I want to write a positive article. I don't want to dwell on anything negative. I want them to be able to utilize this article to show it to people who are going to opt to do business
So
with
give me
them.
a sense. I'm not asking you for anything that's confidential, but a ballpark when you say the subject of the article, it's a paid for article.
It's a paid for article.
About what's the price
It ranges from $1,200 to $2,400.
Okay.
And I also incorporate video interviews, a sit down, one-on-one news style magazine.
Oh, you do?
Video with them. So I just uploaded an article on a gentleman named Brent Hammond. He is a multi-million-dollar real estate producer in Orange County, California, or Southern California. And I not only did an article on him, but I also did a news magazine video article or feature story on him.
Wow.
That's embedded in the site, so people really get a true feel
Because they see him.
of who this person is.
that's
They not
very
only
powerful.
have a dynamic article, but they also have a dynamic video of him as well.
That's outstanding. That's several different price points based on what level of exposure they want.
Exactly.
But let's talk about what are the best practices that you have found that the people that you profile do with the content that you create for them to make sure that they maximize their investment in the article.
Exactly. Well, they show it to potential clients.
Okay.
That's the big thing, because their story hasn't been told in most cases. Who are they? What makes them great? What makes them tick? How did they develop this passion of this particular business that they're in, whether they're a dentist, whether they're a doctor or a financial advisor, an attorney, a general business person? How did they generate, or how did the passion evolve within them that they spent their life's work doing this? And people love hearing these kinds of stories.
Sure.
Why a person entered a specific line of business. You'll be fascinated by some of the things people say about why they entered a specific category of business
Right.
to help people.
I find that here on the radio show.
Yeah,
I always kind of talk to people about their background and how,
Exactly.
like we did with you at the Open, to figure out how you got from where you started to where you are today, because it's never a straight line for an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
There's always a story to be told in that. I'm wondering as well, when they have that article, I would think that, time and time again, I've heard from middle market company CEOs, we're the best kept secret. We don't know how to get our word out. And I believe that with social media now, the brand of the leader, the personal, professional brand of the leader, and the brand of the company should halo one another. The example that I use is, it's a large company, obviously, was Apple with Steve Jobs, that they had separate brand identity, but they worked together when he came back, and it really helped both him as an entrepreneur and the company as an iconic designer to really meld together. And it's part of what Apple is feeling now that they've lost them. So I would think your article can really help leaders of somewhat unknown companies position themselves more prominently in the space.
Totally. And that's because the mainstream local magazines, they usually opt. Now, they want great stories. Don't get me wrong. I've worked for them, and I know all the editors and reporters extremely well. They want great stories, but many times when they do a topic that they want to get as many people incorporated in the article as possible. I reversed it. I focus on one individual, so they can utilize that article to get business for themselves. But playing off what you just said about the social media, the power of social media makes this even greater, because now they take the article and they can place it on their Facebook page. They can place it on their Twitter. They can tweet it out. So there's so many different avenues now to get that word out about you and your business. And like I said, every business is a story. Every business has a great story.
Right.
And every individual has a great story.
And it deserves to be told. We're talking with Rick Weinberg, and we're going to be wrapping up. He is the editor of California Business Journal, or Cal Biz Journal. So tell him again, Rick, if someone out there who's a middle market CEO is listening to this, and maybe they're not in Southern California, but maybe they'd like to reach out to you, how do they reach out directly to you?
Very simple. My email and phone number is all over the website, calbizjournal.com. And my email, you can email me anytime. It's rick@calbizjournal.com. And by the way, biz is B-I-Z.
Thank you.
So it's Cal, C-A-L, biz, B-I-Z, journal.com. And then my phone number, I'll even give my phone number out to you since it's on the website, 949-648-3815.
Hey, Rick, I want to thank you for being a friend of our program, giving of your time to come in, explaining your business model with such energy and enthusiasm, and also hopefully some members of our business community, maybe now listening live or probably in the future through the podcastings that we put out, will reach out to you and see if your services could help them. I appreciate what you're doing to get exposure and notoriety to small and middle market companies in Southern California.
Thank you very much. Love being here.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to thank our sponsors for today's program, and they start with, of course, Brandman University for sponsoring the program. We wouldn't be here without our sponsors. I'd also like to thank Commercial Bank of California, Decision Toolbox, Smart Business Magazine, Succession Strategies, and Center Club of Costa Mesa. Our engineer for today, as I said earlier, is Paul Roberts. Our producer is Crystal Nunley. Our guest coordinator, Kathleen Shepard. Our media strategist is Asia Celestino, and Melissa Pinani does our social media work. Rose Chamora is our VP of Sales, and I'm your host, Rick Franzi. If you'd like to learn more about critical mass for business, possibly the CEO peer groups that I lead here in Orange County, maybe you'd like to be an advertiser on critical mass radio shows, possibly you'd be interested in being a guest or nominating a future guest for the radio show, the best way to do that is go to our website, criticalmass4business.com. And you can see the contact and reach out to me directly. All my contact information is on my website. All right, until the next show, I hope that all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.